Hello everyone. Welcome back to beginner photography classes. Understanding shallow depth of field, in the pet's portrait photography. Today, let's look at how to add to your pets the shallow depth of the field photos. Probably the best technical value. I hope this information is useful to help with your photos. Pets portrait photography. In my puppy photos, when taken with a shallow depth of field, I focused on a cute black nose rather than the rest of the face. However, in general, it is also good to focus on both the eyes and the tip of the nose. Of course, the eyes are the most important. Capture a fast-moving puppy with a fast shutter speed. It is very important to catch the eye as most pets have limited expression. Pets portrait photography. Content order. 1. Changes in depth when shooting a portrait. 2. Use of ambient light outdoors. 3. Use of artificial lighting. 4. Use a shallow depth of field. 5. Bracketing. 6. Using the zoom function. One. Change in depth when shooting a dog portrait. Let's talk about using a shallow depth of field when taking dog portraits. In these cases, a shallow depth of field can help. Improves the composition of the picture by focusing on the focus area and blurring out unnecessary defects. How to portrait. First, focal length. Camera setting. ISO, low as possible 100 to 400 ISO. Shutter speed, faster shutter speed as need. Focus mode, autofocus, set as a single point. Drive mode, multi-shot. Second, aperture. Background can be blurred by adjusting the aperture. Single subject f2 to f4. For groups f5.6 to f8. Third, distance between camera and subject. Fourth, distance from subject to background. Two, use of ambient light outdoors. How do I set a shallow depth of field when photographing a puppy sitting in the shade? If you are taking pictures in a shady environment, the aperture must be fully open, to get enough ambient light for exposure. However, this can result in a shallow depth of field and blurring of the subject. Care must be taken to ensure that the portrait is in maximum focus when opening the aperture around f5.6 or f8 to create an unintended shallow depth of field. However, opening this aperture will require additional artificial lighting for proper exposure. 3. Use of artificial lighting. Professional photographers are accustomed to manipulating light using artificial lightings such as strobes and continuous light sources. When using artificial lighting, care must be taken not to burden the subject with it. The camera flash can be used anytime, so you can create the best photos you want and get a shallow or deep depth of field. By referring to the depth of field chart next to it, you can open or close the aperture to create photos of different emotions. Caveat: if you use a shallow depth of field, but the focus is only on the subject's nose, you may miss the intended goal and blur the connection between the subject. Four, use a shallow depth of field. Many novice photographers have difficulty using shallow depth of field. In addition to making the depth of field too shallow, there can also be a problem with a shallow depth of field used too often. Do not abuse and do not rely too much on a single tool. If you take all your photos in one style, you lose the opportunity to expand your creative horizons. You need to be careful not to diminish the fun of viewing images. The same and common pictures do not attract the attention of the viewers. When viewing photos, it's important to make sure you don't feel that the photos are lacking in attractiveness. Bracketing. Bracketing means creating several photos with different settings between the brackets. Exposure bracketing is when a photographer creates pictures with different exposure settings. The purpose of this is to cover more of the dynamic range. Bracketed photos are used later to create an HDR, high dynamic range, photo. Try taking multiple shots with different aperture values. One has an aperture f1.2, one is f1.8, one is f2.0. Then you can choose one of the three photos. In the example photo, the first is focused on the cute black nose, the second is on the nose and eyes, and the third is a photograph of the entire dog's face. One of the problems when using a shallow depth of field is to ensure that the focus area is placed wide enough in the proper place. In general, exposure bracketing means capturing a series of photos while automatically changing camera settings from shot to shot. In portrait photography, bracketing allows you to focus on the entire face, especially useful for finding character features. Six, using the zoom function. You can manually focus and zoom the camera to see the results using a shallow depth of field. Most cameras are designed to focus on the face with facial recognition, and high contrast areas of the image may result in out of focus. Setting your DSLR camera to manual mode gives you full control over where to apply the shallow depth of field. To see the results using a shallow depth of field, manually focus and zoom the camera. However, do not use wide-angle lenses when shooting shallow depth of field images. Wide-angle lenses are better suited for deep depth of field, where you can focus on the entire scene. In portrait photography, you can use sharp focus and shallow depth of field to adjust the focal length to separate it from the background or create a bokeh effect. This was the subject of today's lecture. However, this can result in a shallow depth of field and blurring of the subject. Care must be taken to ensure that the portrait is in maximum focus when opening the aperture around f5.6 or f8 to create an unintended shallow depth of field. However, opening this aperture will require additional artificial lighting for proper exposure. Some people may think that photography is easy. However, the picture shows us an accurate and honest result. If you want to take your photography skills up to the next level, I encourage you to attend community college photography group classes, or college classes. To learn systematically based on the pictures, and the camera will be more capable. Take care, be safe, and remember this. Today, a novice photographer has shown you how to create portraits from depth photos. We hope this information has been helpful to you. I've outlined how to practice as easily as possible. However, if you understand this, it doesn't seem that difficult to shoot with the camera. In the next video, I'll show you some more informative aspects of photography.